Welcome back to another episode of One Man, One Leg, and One Toothpick. Today, I'm going to be painting this 10 by 10 with a ton of dots. Let's hop into it. I started out with just a layer of color on the bottom, and then on top of that layer, I put some knife strokes with thicker paint to create some texture. And then on top of that, I put a dark color, and then while it was drying, I etched into it, and I'm going to try to put the dots within these lines. So that's where we're starting. Don't worry. I know what you're wondering. Am I going to count? Absolutely. And I'm going to share that live number with you guys. When I first started this painting, I thought that I was going to count all the dots as I was doing it and then count everything in post-production as well. So for the first 2 days, that's what I was doing. After that, because I felt like I was going crazy, I stopped counting during it and I just recorded these marks and I counted it in post-production. So I lose track of how many dots I'm doing until the end of the video. With that being said, thanks for being here, guys, and this is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm about to be sharing some short stories about my life and trying to let you guys know a little bit more about me and keep you entertained while we're watching this insane project. When I was in grade school, I had an amazing art teacher, and we did some pretty awesome projects. And I remember thinking that must be normal, but also, wow, I'm doing some cool things. And my parents are artists, so they never said anything like, oh, did you do that art piece? They always just said, wow, that really turned out great, good job. I didn't find out until years later that apparently there was a general consensus among all the parents that there's no way the students could be making such cool art pieces. And the only way that's possible is if the art teacher was fixing all of our art for us. So they thought that she was, I guess, either walking around doing all 30 students' art, or she was maybe doing it at recess. With that being said, she had 7 classes a day, 30 students a class. It's physically impossible for her to have done that. So what I am saying is that there's just parents that didn't think it was even possible for their kids to be doing art the way they were. So as you're watching this, if you're interested in doing some art, if you're interested in doing a dot painting, I'm here to tell you that you can do it. So hop on in, the water's fine. With that being said, as I think back to grade school, one of my favorite projects we did was a portrait project, and we had to do a portrait of a picture, but we had to look at the picture upside down and we had to draw the picture upside down, which sounds crazy, but they turned out so good. So that's kind of a fun project we did in grade school. If you're not wanting to do dots, maybe you could look into that. Anyway, let's hop on to the next story. This is another grade school story. I think I was in like 2nd grade and I was eating my lunch. You all sit down at the table, pull out your food. I got a sandwich and some carrots and some Oreos. Well, I ate my Oreos first, and our principal came by and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, what do you mean, what am I doing?" She said, "You can't eat your Oreos before your sandwich." And I said, "Why? Why can't I?" And she said, "That's not the way to do it. What would your mother say?" I said, "What would my mom say? What do you mean I'm eating my Oreos? I'm eating my food. I'm gonna eat my sandwich." She got upset with me. She actually pulled me out of lunch into the principal's office, couldn't go to recess. She calls my mom up. She says, "Do you know what your son was doing?" Mom says, "No, what?" And she said, "He's eating his Oreos before his sandwich." And my mom's response to that was, "Well, of course, what if he ate his sandwich and then he didn't have room for Oreos? Then he wouldn't have the room for the best part." And that was one of my favorite moments ever. She was frustrated with me every moment of every day she ever saw me for the rest of the year. Day 2 goals. I think I want to do 2,000, maybe 2,500 dots today. I think I got the method down, so this is going to move a little bit quicker. And now I know kind of the direction I want to go into. So let's do it. All right, this is a story from around 7th grade. I had some friends and we wanted to do a little bit of a reckless, crazy activity, and we wanted to do some ding-dong ditching. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's when you go to someone's house, ring the doorbell, and run away. We had parked our bikes about 2 blocks away from the guy's house. Specifically, this guy was known for getting upset if you ding-dong ditched him, so of course that's the guy we went to do it to. We were all watching our first buddy ring the doorbell and run away, and then nothing happened. The door didn't even open. There was nothing. Silence. It was like a ghost town. As we were leaving, one of my buddies said, "Nobody has the guts to go ring it again." I said, "I have the guts." So they're all about 1.5 blocks away on their bikes, just waiting. And I walk on over, and I start to approach the house, and it's dark. There's a big bush in the front lawn. I get about 15 feet away from it, and this man just pops out from behind it and starts to chase me down. I turn around and I just sprint for my life, and I'm screaming as I'm running towards my buddies, "Run, run, he's right behind me, run." And my buddies just start pedaling down the hill, and I'm running down the hill, and the man is on my heels. On my left, there was this trail, and I knew the trail really well because, I played around outside all the time. So I took a left and ran down the trail. And of course, he's not going to chase the kids on the bikes. He's going to chase the guy running that was going to ring it again. So he starts to chase me down this trail. I knew he was going to catch me, but I also knew that there was a creek bed on my left side. So I just turned and jumped through the bushes about 6 feet down and fell into this creek of water and stuck my whole body under the water and held my breath. My phone was in my pocket, of course. And I could hear him screaming, "Where are you? Where are you?" Eventually, he left. I got out of the water, met up with my buddies, and he took my bike and he put it on his back porch and he locked it up. And I didn't know where it was, but a buddy of mine was friends with his son, and he ended up saying, "Hey, yeah, your bike's locked up on their back porch." I eventually got to get it back from him by stealing it with his son's help, so I'm sure that made him upset as well. He was holding it as a hostage. So what I'm trying to say about that story is, 1, it's entertaining, and 2, people don't deserve to be ding-dong ditched. Don't do it. It's not a good thing to do. And 3, adults will chase you down if you make them upset, so be careful. This is a little YouTube video anecdote, which I think is pretty funny. But I have a little kitty cat named Bean. She's a blessing. Love her to death. And usually during the daytime, she hangs out outside. She likes to run around, chase squirrels, and never catch them though. And one day she's hanging out there, and a neighborhood cat came around and scratched her face. It made me actually pretty sad. She actually was bleeding. And as a joke, I made a little YouTube short, and I named it "Kicking Cats. Is It Ethical?" And I was just joking about how, what do I do if someone else's cat comes over and picks on my cat? Well, I found out from making that video that quite often people search, "Is it okay to kick cats?" Which I find hilarious. I named it that as a joke, but I can see how many people search it and click on my video, and it's a daily search. And I just want to come out here and tell everybody outright, no. The answer is no. It is not okay to kick cats. Don't do it. 'Twas a joke. Don't do it. You're welcome. This is one of my favorite work stories, I guess, from my past few years. And basically, at my last job, there was a time frame when no one was showing up on time. I was showing up on time. Okay, there were people showing up on time, but there was a good amount of people not showing up on time. And basically everybody was getting frustrated with everybody. And so leadership came out and they said, "Hey, if anyone shows up late this week, you are going to feel our wrath." I thought, whatever, this isn't applicable to me. I show up on time. That's funny. This is going to happen to somebody and they're going to get screwed, but it ain't going to be me. But of course, the next morning I'm leaving for work, and I close my bedroom door and take one step and realize, oh, my keys to my car and my keys to my room are inside my room, and my door is locked, and I'm outside of it, and I need to be inside of it. So, because I didn't want to be the person that was late to work that was going to feel the wrath, I ran downstairs, I grabbed my oscillating saw, and I just cut out a circle big enough to fit my hand through the door, and I, turned the doorknob from the other side, got my keys, and then I made it to work on time. So that was a win. And then I actually that weekend threw that little circular cutout back into my door. I glued it, I sanded it, and then I painted both sides. And when I sold that house, you'd never know that had happened because I covered it up. So the lesson from this is, if you need to get inside your room, you can cut out a hand-sized hole, and also don't lock your keys in your room. But it was a win for me. I'm gonna keep viewing it as a win. So hopefully you're viewing it as a win as well. Here in Kansas City, there's a Nelson Art Museum, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure in there's this black Rothko painting. I'm doing this off memory, so bear with me if I'm wrong. But there's basically this big black painting. It's just black on black on black. Just tons of black, big black, nothingness. I remember saying to my dad, is this even art? And he said, yeah, I guess, but I don't get it. And I said, okay, you don't get it, I don't get it. How does anyone get it? This can't be art. But it was, they said. And it was the only painting with a rope around it, keeping you from getting too close to it. And my dad had the smart idea of asking the curator, hey, why is this the only painting that's roped off? There's all these other paintings around here, why this one? And they said, because people will come and they'll look at the painting and they'll get closer to the painting and they'll look at the painting and they'll get closer to the painting, and then they'll start to cry, and then they'll get closer to the painting and then they'll start to sob, and then they will uncontrollably fall into the painting. And that happened so many times that they actually had to rope it off, which is insane. Something that I completely don't connect with is connecting with people so hard that they actually fall into it. So what I'm saying with that is if you want to do some paint, some people might not like it, but somebody will. It's all in the eye of the beholder.
Maybe another 3,000, and then I'll only have one more session, is what I'm thinking. That'll put us around 10,000 dots. So, let's do it.
What I meant was, I'm around 5,000 dots, and I thought this day I'd do around 3,000 more to put me around 8. And then I thought it would only be one more session to finish it up. Because for some reason I kept thinking it's only going to take me 10,000 dots. It's only going to take me 10,000 dots. And then I stopped really counting on that third day, and I just dotted and dotted and dotted. And then obviously in post-production I learned the truth, that it took many more dots than 10,000. Anyway, let's get back to story time. When I was 19, I wanted to go on an adventure. I also wanted to travel, and I also wanted to help people. I think I also wanted to drop out of college and a couple other things as well. But the moral of the story is I went on the internet and I started to search for volunteer opportunities around the world. And I found a place in Honduras who was taking volunteer teachers at the time. I think that was probably because they had the murder capital of the world and they were having trouble getting people to come out there. But I saw it as a great opportunity. So I went to Honduras, became a teacher, and had an absolute blast and met some of my favorite people. But with that being said, I did have to get a visa to enter Honduras, of course, but you could only obtain a 4-month visa. So that meant every 4 months, the teachers would have to leave Honduras and they'd have to leave the country and then come back into the country to get their new visa. With that being said, it wasn't so simple. If you went north, you'd had to go through Guatemala into Belize, And if you went south, you'd have to go through Nicaragua and you'd have to go into Costa Rica, because you had to leave what is called C4 region, which was Nicaragua, Honduras, and Guatemala. So when I went south for Christmas break, my plan was I'm going to go through Nicaragua for 10 days, have a bunch of fun because it's really cheap in Nicaragua at the time. And then I'll just pop into Costa Rica for 3 days, barely go across the border because you have to leave for at least 3 days before you come back. And then I'll pop back up, hitchhike my way north, and get home for school on time. Of course, it wasn't always so simple. When I got to Costa Rica, I had crossed many borders at this point, but I'd never crossed Costa Rican border. And I had no idea that there's this thing called perpetual tourists in Costa Rica. And what that means is people would go to Costa Rica and then they'd just never leave. So Costa Rica's solution to this problem was people needed to provide what is called proof of exit. Now, proof of exit means you'd have to have a plane ticket proving that you're going to leave at some point, or a bus ticket proving that you're going to have to leave at some point. But of course, I was not prepared for that. I had only gone on my trip with probably less than $250, and by the time I got to the border of Costa Rica, I had $27. And the only bus ticket I could buy for my quote-unquote proof of exit was a $25 bus ticket. So that gave me $2 remaining. I had to do it because I had to get my visa renewed. So I bought the bus ticket and I crossed the border. My original plan was just to pop over, stay in the beach for 3 days, and then pop back over. But because I bought this bus ticket, I wanted to use it. And the bus ticket started in this place called San Jose, which is the capital of Costa Rica. So I had to hitchhike my way further south into the capital of Costa Rica, which hitchhiking in the cities is a lot harder than hitchhiking out of cities. Anyway, I ended up getting to the bus on time. I ended up doing that on New Year's Eve, and by New Year's night, they dropped us off in a city in Nicaragua. So New Year's night, I'm walking about 90 blocks out of this city, just trying to go north, because I had to get home on Monday for school and be my teacher self. So I ended up walking 90 blocks out of that city, and then I actually hitchhiked on a motorcycle for probably about 30 miles. And then I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't wake up immediately tomorrow and hitchhike further, I am going to fall behind. So rather than taking the guy's offer to sleep at his house, I slept on the side of the road in a concrete tube I found. And then I woke up at 5 in the morning and continued my journey further north. I crossed the border into Honduras, and then I made it home on time. I think I probably made it home 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. on that Sunday. And then the next morning, I was back at school teaching. I know that sounds insane, and it pretty much was. And I would not recommend anyone to be doing that kind of stuff. But I will say this. I loved every minute I was in Honduras. I loved every single person I met, and I wouldn't have changed anything. I also have seen my little second graders be growing up, and I check on them every once in a while on Facebook, and someday I hope to go get to visit them again. And they're turning into some pretty wonderful people. Speaking of wonderful people, when I was teaching in Honduras, I actually was living in a volunteer teacher house, and there was a teacher from Canada, a teacher from Ireland, a teacher from Scotland, all over the place. And it was really great. I got to learn so many different viewpoints. It was also when Donald Trump got elected, and I felt like everybody thought that America was crazy. And it was just interesting to be this young boy that didn't ever know anything about anywhere else, but then I got to experience everybody else's perspective at the same time. So if you haven't ever got out of the United States or seen anything new, I do recommend to people to leave your bubble and have some new experiences and see some things from different perspectives. With that being said, if you guys ever want to hear anything more about Honduras or those kinds of stories, let me know. I don't want to overwhelm you with absolute insanity, but I have done some crazy things, and I'm here to tell you the tales. And I'm here to tell you not to do the things I've done. I just wanted to give you guys some entertaining food for thought as we're watching 7,110 dots being put down, and we're getting into this dark green area. This white area, I really like the way it's popping. I'm not trying to veer away from this Honduran story, but this blue area, It's starting to look good, isn't it? I think so. Anyway, we're going to finish up this day and we'll hop into another story.
All right, we're about to do day 4. Before we do that, I'm going to show you how I've been doing this. So if you're wondering how I'm counting or how this is even working, I'm going to quickly explain. The first thing I do is set my camera up 1.3 inches away. It's important to have your camera level to the spot you're going to shoot, because once you zoom in like that, if I'm at an angle, you'd be able to tell. Now, if I want to get even closer, I can just give myself a little room and then do some more zoom. I want to do these little white dots for this little thing here. Now, for the sake of my own sanity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I do really small dots, I can usually do about 5 at a time. And 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh no. 10, baby? Oh yeah, 10. And then I'll mark it. 10 sets of 10 to get every 100. And then I'll do another 10. This is amazing, I know. It takes forever. This is why it's all time-lapsed. Alright, 1, 10 out of the 100, so that means 60, 70, 80, 90, and then that means 100. So basically I'm just counting by tens and then adding that up to 100 and then adding it up to 1,000, and then in post-edit I look for these hand signals and that tells me what number I'm at.
We are going back to another grade school story. As you can probably tell by this point, I've had a pretty crazy life, and it started when I was young. When I was young, living in Missouri, we had some cold winters. They're not so cold these days. I remember having like ice storms and snowstorms, and this last winter there was like 2 snow days. So, global warming, what can you say? But I will say this. I have always had the same trend of not wearing very many layers. I'd rather be cold than hot. I don't want to sweat. So I'm just a guy that I wear shorts in the winter. I've been wearing shorts in the winter since I was a kid. I also don't really ever wear a jacket. I mean, sometimes. If it's snowing, if it's like actively snowing, sure. But even if I'm going to be running around, like say I'm a kid at grade school and I'm going out to recess, I'm going to be running around. I didn't want to bring my jacket just to throw it on the ground with everyone else's pile of jackets. Then I'd have to sort through it and find it. No, I didn't need a jacket. My mom would say, "Are you going to wear a jacket?" I'd say no. And she'd say, "All right." And her thought process, well, we'll get to that. I end up going to school on a cold day, probably in 5th grade. And the recess aide and the same principal with the cookie situation, they look at me and they say, "What are you doing out here?" I say, "Look, I'm about to go to recess." About to, because we had to wait in line to go to recess. We would eat lunch and then go outside and wait in line until it was our turn to go play. So the waiting in line part, that was a little cold, sure. But I don't care. Anyway, they say, "What are you doing out here? You don't have a jacket on." I say, "Yeah, I don't have a jacket on because I don't want a jacket. I'm about to go run around and be a kid." And again, I find myself in the principal's office. And again, the principal calls my mom. And my mom says, "Hello?" And she says, "Do you know what's going on with your son today?" And my mom says, "No, what's up?" And the principal says, "He's here without a jacket and it's cold outside." And my mom said, "Yeah, I saw him leave today. I know he doesn't have a jacket." And she said, "You let him come without a jacket?" And my mom said, "He didn't want to bring it. If he's cold, next time he'll bring a jacket. That's how you learn you might need a jacket." The principal was not having it. I'm telling you, she already hated me. Like, she would walk up to a table of people eating and she'd say, "Hello, friends." And she'd just look at me and she might as well be saying, "Hello, enemy." Anyway, she didn't let me go to recess that day. So for the rest of my time in grade school, I would have to bring a jacket and then just throw it on the ground immediately and then grab it. And it was awesome. It made me learn that I had to follow stupid rules sometimes. I mean, not stupid, sure. Yeah, jackets are good, but not everyone has to do what everyone's doing. I don't think. I think I was in 8th grade. No, must have been 6th or 7th grade for this story as well. But I was an outdoorsy kid. Me and a buddy went to the creek and we're running around, and all of a sudden I had to go number 2. And by number 2 I mean I had to go poo. And I had to do it then and there, or I wasn't gonna make it. I don't know. It came up on me, okay? So I went and I found a little private place. He knew what I had to do. He knew I was doing my business. I sit down, pop a squat, as they say, and I let loose. And I then needed to wipe, and I had to use nature's wipe, right? So I found the biggest leaf I could find, and I wiped it good, okay? It's just, I used a poison oak leaf. And by one, I mean 2 or 3 or 4 poison oak leaves to wipe my butthole. And I'm just saying that when you use poison ivy spray on poison ivy to heal it, it burns. And there's only one way to make that any worse, and that's to spray poison oak spray into your butt. I'm so sorry. It's supposed to be about art, but it's kind of not.
All right, day 5. I thought that this would be the last day, but now that I'm here, I don't. A nice still shot to look at for a second here before we try to wrap this up. I say try because this is going to take me a while longer.
This is a sad tale, and it's a tale that you need to know because it's something that I think about at least a few times a year. And the story goes as such. I had a bunny when I was a kid. I think until I was about maybe 7th or 8th grade, I had a bunny. My bunny's name was Bun Bun. I actually trained him to stay on a towel in the middle of the kitchen floor, and he'd just sit there all day and hang out. Good little dude. Anyway, he lived outside in a cage. My dad actually kind of built this cage into the playset for me, and he just lived out there. I mean, bunnies poop a lot, and it was kind of nice that he was out there living. And we built him a little house, gave him a little insulated house to live in out there, and he loved it. He just come in, go out, come in, go out. We loved him. But here's what happened to Bun Bun. Bun Bun one day, and by one day I mean Easter morning, I look out at Bun Bun, as I always do every morning. Oh, look, I'm gonna go get Bun Bun. And I couldn't see Bun Bun. And I run out to my cage, and my cage was locked. And I know what you're thinking. That's good, right? Well, no, I left his cage unlocked every day because I was a kid and I thought nothing of it. But someone came and stole my bunny on Easter. And if this video ever goes viral and that guy ever hears this video, I just want you to know, you made me sad, man. You made me sad, but you taught me a lesson. Lock up important stuff, guys, because there's people out there that will just take your bunny. I mean, did they eat him? Was it like a kid and he went home and he's like, "Mom, look, I found this bunny." And their mom's like, "Oh, cool." What? I don't know. Bun Bun, rest in peace, buddy. Rest in peace. We're going to take a story time break, and we are going to talk about the painting for a little bit. Now that we've reached the 10,000 dot mark, which is how many I thought that it would take to fill up this whole painting. I thought 10,000 max. And then I had no idea how many I was at, so I thought maybe this is like 12 or 13,000. Obviously, we got to 17 by the end. With that being said, there's a couple different things I wanted to do to this painting, and I kind of achieved what I wanted. I wanted I wanted to have color variation, meaning I wanted to have, reds and blues and greens and oranges. But I also wanted those colors not to have extreme similarities between each of the segments, meaning I didn't want each of the oranges to be the same. I wanted this orange to be kind of a darker orange. Obviously, I sprinkled light throughout. I wanted this red to have a ton of tiny dots. I wanted the whole thing to have tiny dots. I wanted this red to have some darks sprinkled throughout, and I wanted the dots to be a little bit larger. Also wanted some duller kind of pinks in there. I thought it kind of felt like a speckled feeling. This top corner I wanted to be dark green. So I'm actually adding in a lot of black and a lot of dark green. So even though it may look like there's tons of gaps by the end of that part, it's pretty full. This top right corner I wanted to have, well, technically it ends up being the top left corner, but hey, let's not get complicated here. I wanted the red to be more of a purple and red mix, and I wanted this yellow moon to have this blue right next to it. I wanted this yellow part to pop, and so I just kept on going. I added on, sprinkled in some things, but I kept it for the most part yellow. This little segment I wanted to look like Dippin' Dots. It didn't start out like that, but after a while I was like, this looks like Dippin' Dots, and I kept going. All in all, the dots took forever. I can't believe that 11,000 dots later, I still was cooking. This segment, I wanted to have thicker dots at the top and thicker dots at the bottom, and then the middle has a bunch of tiny dots. Anyway, let's get back to story time. My first grade teacher was awesome. She was also my brother's teacher, so she just was known by her family, and I really connected with her. And in first grade, I could say that I loved school. You're just going around being a kid, learning about simple things, trying to learn how to read and write, as one does. And then I got into second grade, and I got a different teacher. But oddly enough, my first grade teacher became a second grade teacher that year, but I didn't get her. I got a new one. Anyway, this new teacher I got, she was supposed to be teaching like 5th or 6th grade, but they forced her to teach second grade, so that was probably frustrating for her. And then I also just did not connect with her in any way, shape, or form. And so I just started to fall behind in school, and I started to go home every day and just tell my mom that I'm stupid and that everyone else is smart and that I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not going to be okay and I'm not doing good and I hate school. And that was really concerning to my mom. So she started to contact the school and say, hey, I don't know about this. Avery's not doing good. He's not doing good in grade wise, and he's not doing good school wise, and he's not doing good mentally. And Avery needs to switch classes, and his first grade teacher is now a second grade teacher, and we had a great time with her, and that worked well. And so can we just switch classes? And the school said, absolutely not. You cannot switch classes. That's not a possibility. There's nothing we can do here. And they said, it's your son. He's got problems. He probably has ADHD. You should go get him tested. So mom took me to my doctor. Doctor did their thing, and they said, oh, no, he's not ADHD. He's just a young boy that likes to run around and be a little boy. And so I ended up continuing in that class, and then things went worse. And then my mom contacted the school again. She said, this is not okay. We need to switch him out of this class. It's not working. And they said, that's still not a possibility. He's just going to have to do it. And then my mom said, well, I'm going to pull him out of school and I'm going to put him into a different school. And then they said, okay. Never mind. We can switch him. After Christmas break. He can switch into his first grade teacher's class. Again, second grade. But anyway, I switch into that class as the second semester comes, and my first grade teacher just tells my parents, I don't know what happened to him, but he is a complete sad mess. And my only goal is to help him improve his attitude and help him get back to where he was, like he was in first grade. I just don't know what's going on. This is not okay. And I fell further and further behind, and my mom, trying to figure out what she could possibly do to help me, researched a bunch of different things, and somehow she came across this thing called the PACE program. So in third grade, rather than going to school in the morning, I had this private teacher come over for this PACE program. And basically, it was really strange. You had to do everything to the beat of a metronome, and I did extreme memorization, all these different types of things. This woman would come over 3 times a week, I think, and then my parents had to do 2 of the days a week. And I was angry. I told my parents I hate doing this. I told my parents, I'm going to school late every day because she would come at 7. I would work with her from 7 to 8, and then I'd show up to school at like 8:30, and I'd be late. And everybody would be like, oh, look, Avery's walking in late. And I just said, this is ridiculous. They all know I'm dumb, and they all know that I'm getting help, and I'm an idiot, and this sucks. And my mom pursued. And the PACE program, though, did have its ups. There was a big reward system, so whenever you got further in the program, you got like to choose between a water gun or a book or whatever the case may be. So there's this big reward system. Anyway, as I continued through the program, I started to actually learn how to memorize. I started to learn how to read. I started to learn how to do all these different things. And again, to the beat of a metronome, ticking, tick, tick, tick. Pretty strange. And then I finished the PACE program, and I had my next, they did evaluations at school where they'd test your reading level, test your math level, test all these different levels. And after I finished that program, I went from being probably one of the worst students in the whole grade to then being able to read at an 8th grade level, I think. So in 3rd grade, I was reading at an 8th grade level, which is pretty insane. And then I never tried again in school ever. And I just coasted my way through. And I usually was if the teacher's doing their thing or we're supposed to do an assignment, I'd be hiding a book under my desk so I could read more. It was actually kind of comical. But at the end of the day, it really helped. And I feel like I don't know where I'd be if my mom hadn't have found that program. And I don't know where I'd be if my mom and dad wouldn't have helped out with the school, because, you can't have her come every day. It's pretty expensive. Anyway, so lesson learned from me that I didn't have ADHD, but I did need help. And sometimes kids do need help, and not everything's the same for each person. So different people might need different things. And my takeaway from this is thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. And here you guys go. I'm working hard still, obviously. I can do a bunch of dots and count them all. It seems pretty focused. Anyway, we'll hop into the next story. And thanks, Mama. All right. I do want to talk about something that I do practice on a daily basis, and it's the 5 seconds of crying rule, which means if something frustrating happens or something's going on that I don't like, I just give myself a maximum of 5 seconds to complain about it. Because after that, you're just losing bandwidth, and you're probably just frustrating yourself further. Suffering comes from within the mind. Pain comes from outside of the mind. So pain, sometimes you cannot handle, right? It's something that is outside of your control. But usually suffering is coming from within. And so people ask me, isn't it horrible having to do all those dots? Or isn't it horrible having to count all that? I don't think so. I just try not to go into that place. I try to just continue from a healthy perspective, and I try to just move out of those kind of thoughts as quickly as possible. And so all these tasks that I'm doing, I'm kind of getting to the point where I enjoy them. And I know they're weird, I know they're crazy, and I know they're a lot of work, but that's where I'm at. I think that I gotta be at 10,000 dots, but I could be wrong. Either way, I think this is the last day, so let's see. I was basing that educated guess off of the first few days of my dots. I didn't realize that as I was doing this, I kept getting quicker and more precise. And so, no, I was not at 10,000 dots. Nice try, buddy. Nice try. We were at 14,760 dots. Obviously, buddy. Come on. Anyway, we're going to hop back into the next story here as we look at this nice dark green area starting to finally get its fill in. Looking good. This anecdote is actually a pretty recent story. I'd say it's in the last few months. I realized a couple months ago that all the music I was listening to was kind of sad. It was mostly breakup music or love music, or there's even, just I was actually getting into like Boy with Uke, which I like his beats and stuff, but it's like all of it's just sad. And I kept feeling like I would have like this background track in my mind of the music I would be listening to. And it's like, this is not really, uplifting or happy. So I've been trying to put background music into my mind, or background thoughts into my mind that are positive. So I've been listening to a little bit of Theo Von here and there, and I really love his attitude, and I think he's just fun. With that being said, he had on a guest recently named Billy Strings. Billy Strings is a bluegrass player, and he is someone who I just loved listening to the interview, of course. And then at the end of the interview, Billy asked Theo if he'd like to listen to some music. And Theo said, of course, if you want, yeah. And Billy was like, of course. So he went to the bathroom, came back, grabbed his guitar, and he busted out 2 songs. And they were just so fun. It was so good to listen to it. And I connected with it. And I was like, you know what? I don't like bluegrass. I've never been into this kind of music, but I want to change the music I've been listening to. And they say that your music taste doesn't really change once you grow up, but I was on a journey. I was on a mission to change my music taste. So I have officially gotten into Billy Strings, and I've officially changed that background track in my mind. I have that bluegrass beat a lot of the time. And so it's just an interesting thought. If you're ever thinking, man, I don't know, the thoughts I'm having are not exactly the ones I want, I think that a lot of the times what you're taking in and what you're surrounding yourself around is what's going to change what's going on in your head. So if you want to change what's going on in your head, maybe change what's going on outside of your head. So thanks, Billy. I love your music. You're amazing. And I hope you know that you really influence people in a really, really good way. And for me personally, you've blessed me. So thanks, Billy. 2 weeks ago, I was at the airport. I had to go out to Virginia. I got a house out there, and I needed to do some repairs on it. And so I got on my plane. I had 2 planes. The first plane, I sat next to someone who I'd basically, talked to a little bit, and they were kind, but we didn't really connect. And then the second plane, I actually had the whole row to myself, so I didn't sit by anybody. And on that plane ride, I was thinking, I hear all these stories sometimes of like 2 famous people that randomly sit by each other and they have a great time talking, or someone meets their new best friend on the plane and now they're hitting it off and it's just awesome. And I have never had that experience. I mean, I've been on quite a few planes, but I've never like made a friend. And my second plane landed and I thought, well, it's just not this time. Maybe next time. And I was walking down the Norfolk terminal trying to get to the baggage claim, and I'm pretty slow right now, slower than most. And so this guy starts to pass me on my right, or starts to catch up on my right, and he's just like, what a walk, huh? And I was like, yeah, they're trying to make me get my steps in, even though I don't want to. And we just started laughing, and turns out that he's from Colorado, and he was just fun, and he's probably in his 40s maybe, and I didn't know or think anything of it, and we're just walking down the terminal. I'm not thinking that we're going to become best friends or something in the next 5 minutes, but we just started to talk about, he's from Colorado, he likes to do hiking. He asked me if I want to hike. I told him I've done that kind of stuff in the past, but I'm not really trying to push myself too crazy when it comes to my right leg right now, and so I don't know, when I would or if I would ever be hiking in the future. And then he was talking about, just it would be a pain tolerance game, and I said, yeah, well, a lot of the time people are doing ice baths every day because they're trying to cause that uncomfortable feeling, and then that uncomfortable feeling can be good for people. And I said, but I already got my leg cut off, so I got that uncomfortable feeling all the time. I don't need to add to it, if you know what I'm saying. And that made him laugh. And then he got his bag, I got my bag, and he went out one door saying he had to get an Uber, and I went out the other door. I also thought it was kind of strange he went out that door because, I knew that most of the Ubers have to come to the side I was going out. but I'm not going to try to correct somebody. Maybe he has a plan that I don't know about. So anyway, I go outside and I sit down waiting for my buddy to come pick me up. And, a minute later, he pops out the door because he did go out the wrong door. And he's just like, Avery, hey, you ever want to come to Colorado and hike with me? And I was like, absolutely. And he came over, gave me his number, and he said, there's hard 14ers and there's easy 14ers, but if you ever wanted to come out and hike with me, and that'd be awesome. And I, of course, took him up on it, and I'm going to start training for my first 14er hike. So I'm going to progressively go on longer and longer walks, and I have officially made a friend in an airport, and it wasn't on a plane like I thought it'd be. It was just walking down the terminal. And so the point of this story is everyone I meet, everywhere I go, I'm always trying to just give them the time of day, because that's the only thing I have right now is right now. And so if a human being crosses my path, it's part of my journey, and I'm interested in you. And so it was pretty cool. I'm pretty excited that I met him, and I look forward to going to Colorado, and I'm going to be training for this hike. So if you're bumping into people, try to give them some love, because you never know who you're going to meet, what you're going to do, what you're going to learn, where you're going to go, And here we are, guys, finally looking at the final project. I think it turned out freaking awesome. I did end up turning it to the left, so the yellow's in the top left, the rectangle guy's in the bottom right. All in all, I think it's got a good way around it. It's not as if you're just looking at one thing. There's a lot of things to look at. There's a smaller painting, but there's a lot going on, and the texture's super fun, and I'm just loving the way it turned out. If you hate it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. If you want to tell me something other than that, do that too. Thanks for this. Thanks for coming by. Have a good day, guys. Every day is a new day. Keep it going. Keep it real. Keep it frosty.